Hey everyone, I'm out here in the garage today with the Acura RL once again. And what I thought I'd do today is talk about replacing the power steering belt. So stay tuned. Alright, so the last two videos that I put out were for the alternator belt and for the AC belt. And what I thought I'd do is continue on with that series and work on the power steering belt. So I have already taken those two belts off the car, the AC belt and the alternator belt. And so we're just going to go ahead and jump straight into removing the power steering belt. Alright, so I've removed the alternator belt. There's the alternator right there. I've also removed the AC belt. There's the idler pulley, and then also the AC compressor down there. And of course, the belts come off the crank pulley and go to the right. And you can see right behind here, that's the power steering belt. So that one comes off the crank pulley and goes to the left. So that means our power steering pump is actually over here somewhere. So we've got a few things to remove in order to get the power steering pump belt off. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and take the air filter box out. And if you remember from the air filter video, there's actually a bolt right here that's 10 millimeters. We'll take that off first. And there's a second bolt down over here, way down there. There it is. So with those two bolts out, you just lift up right here at this joint. We can pull the box out. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and get this wire harness out of the way so you can see a little bit easier. Just going to unclip it. Just pull forward on the tab and lift up. Same thing on this one. Okay, so hopefully you can see that a little bit better. So there's our power steering pump right down here. That's one of the lines coming off of it. Alright, so this part of the air intake also needs to be removed. So what we're going to do here is disconnect this hose, take that off. There is a 10 millimeter right here. Loosen that up. Okay, that should be loose enough. Then we've got a bunch of hoses to take off here. We've got a clamp right there and another clamp over here. Let's go ahead and take this off. Slide this off first here. Put this aside so I don't lose it. Okay. Alright, so now I've got that off, and just go ahead and take this off here. There we go. Alright, so to loosen the power steering pump up so we can get the belt off, there is a nut right there. See that hopefully? And then there's a bolt way down here right on the bracket for the engine mount. So I'll show a picture of that because it's really hard to see on camera. But those need to be loosened up. You don't need to take them off, just loosen them up so you can get this belt off. Alright, so this nut is a 12 millimeter. That should be good enough. Alright, so as I said, the second item that I need to loosen is the bolt that's way down there, so you probably can't see that. I'll show a picture of it. So I've got a 14 millimeter on my ratchet here. Okay, that's probably loose enough. Alright, so there's an adjuster right here. Hopefully you can see that. So I'm going to go ahead and spin that to the left or counterclockwise to loosen the belt. And that is a 10 millimeter. Just pull up on the belt a little bit. Okay, you can see the power steering pump moved over to the right. And I should be able to get the belt off now, I think. Let's see here. There we go. Alright. Let's push it through that way. I'll take it off the crank pulley. Down there, and bring it out this way. Looks like it's stuck behind the hose over here. There we go. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff in this area for this to get caught on. So it's very easy for it to get stuck. Just have to kind of work it off, and then it should come right off. And I just noticed, I'm not sure you can see that very well, but this one actually does have some cracking. You can see right there, it's also got a little bit of a tear in it. So I'm going to go ahead and replace this belt. Alright, so here's the part I'm going to use. This is the Bando 4PK945. And when you do a part search for this belt, if you look on the Acura website, one of the Acura parts websites, it's 4PK949. And you can see it's also Bando. So I thought that was interesting that the part numbers are different. So then you'll see the Acura or Honda part numbers 56992 P5G003. Alright, so let's put the belt back on. And I took this bar out so you can see a little bit easier what I'm doing. So first of all, what we're going to do is go ahead and feed our belt through here. Actually, I'm going to come on this side. Feed it that way. Get it on the crank pulley first. Remember, it's the last slot on here. Way in the back. Okay, then I'll wrap it around the power steering pump pulley. And now we just need to tighten up this adjuster on the left-hand side over here. I'm just going to get it reasonably tight for right now. Stop right there and check it. Okay, so that feels pretty loose still. So the specification for the deflection on this belt, so you're going to be pushing up on the bottom of the belt and applying about 22 foot-pounds of pressure. The specification for a new belt is 0.030 to 0.035, or roughly around 5/16 of an inch. And then for a used belt is 0.41 to 0.49, or around 3/8 to 7/16 of an inch. Tighten that up a little bit more. And I believe the reason why they have you pressing from underneath is because there's not really much space to work with in here to get any sort of measuring device in here. So that's why they have you doing it from the bottom instead. Okay, I'm going to check the measurement on that. So again, I've got the ruler here. And I've got some tape on the end. Hopefully you can see that. And that's the 5/16 mark right there. It's still a little bit too loose. Probably about it right there. Let me check it again. Yep. Okay, that's about right there. Alright, so this next part I am not going to show on camera because that would mean having to put everything back in and take everything out again in order to adjust the belt. So what you're supposed to do is tighten up this nut, and I'm actually going to show you that in a second here. Tighten up the nut in the front, then you're supposed to tighten up the bolt. Then you have to turn the car on and let it run for about 5 minutes. Then you turn your steering wheel from lock to lock, just like this, back and forth. And then after that 5 minutes, you have to adjust the belt to the used belt specification, which is once again 0.41 to 0.49 inches, or about probably about 3/8 to about 7/16 of an inch. Alright, so the torque spec on this nut right here is 16 foot-pounds. That's a 12 millimeter. And then the torque spec on the bolt down below is 33 foot-pounds, and that is a 14 millimeter. Alright, so let's go ahead and put this back together now. We've got the belt on. And so I'm going to start with the intake. I've got my clamp back on here. Put that on first. Alright, that took a little bit of work. That's back on now. And I'm going to put this back on. Don't forget my clamp here. Let's be a little bit stubborn here. There we go. Get that out of the way. Okay. And this is a 10 millimeter here. Okay, that's nice and tight. Put this hose back on. Alright, so I'm going to put the air filter box back in. There's a little hole down here that this part goes in. So see the air filter replacement video if you want a little more detail as to what I'm doing here. So let's go ahead and drop this in. Down like that. I'm going to lift up here. Just kind of drop everything down there. We've got our two bolts. There's one that goes here, 10 millimeters. The second bolt goes down over here in this area. Again, watch the air filter replacement video if you want more detail. Okay, let's tighten that up. Okay, so that's back in now, and that is pretty much it. Alright, so there's a power steering belt replacement on the Acura RL. That's a bit more involved procedure than the other two belts. Obviously, you have to get the other two belts off to get to that power steering belt. And then there's also a lot of hoses and wire harnesses and everything else in the way too. So hopefully I was able to capture all that on video. It's really hard to film in there. It's just not much space to work with. And like I said, there's a lot of obstacles in the way. So hopefully this information was helpful, and thanks for watching.